Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the third year of World Academy of Safety and Health being here in St. Kitts and Nevis, providing water safety training. This is the mission and initiative of our Premier Mark Brantley and the Honorable Eric Evelyn, and we're just thrilled with how much the program has grown. We started originally just with some lifeguard training. Now it's grown into partnerships with Department of Education, Department of Youth, Department of Sport. We have disaster management, tourism, fisheries now, and also the Coast Guard. So it's amazing how in just 3 short years, your idea of bringing water safety to the island and community of Nevis has grown so much, and your initiative of eventually getting water safety training on all the ferries, that's coming along. And we're just thrilled to have Jeff Dudley down here, the owner and head of WASH, and one of his trainers here, one of the Bond brothers, Eric, you remember that. So we have Bryce Bond. So with no further ado, I'm gonna turn this over to Jeff Dudley. He can tell what the program has been for this year in July. They'll be back in October for another 2 weeks. So over to you, Jeff.
Thank you, Terry. Good morning, and thank you all for being here. As was mentioned, this is our third year here on Nevis, delivering a variety of water safety and water rescue training, as well as CPR, AED, and first aid. The opportunity over the last 3 years has afforded our team the chance to build relationships, personal relationships with people here in Nevis, and we are grateful for that. It's through these relationships that we've established that we've been able to grow this training program. You know, in year one, we came down to Nevis and ran 2 courses and had 10 participants. Last year, we had 4 courses and 40 participants. And this in only our third year, this week and next week, we will have run 9 courses across both islands and have touched almost 200 participants. So in 3 short years, obviously, we're grateful for the support that we've received and looking forward to coming back. You know, I would like there's many people to thank. To be able to do this, to pull this off, so many people have been involved in putting the logistics in place for us. And I'd like to start by thanking, of course, Terry and Swim to Win, which is the official WASH, or World Academy of Safety and Health Training Center of St. Kitts and Nevis. I'd like to thank Mr. Jameer Claxton with the Department of Sport, Ms. Sanella Claxton, Ms. Londa Brown, Ms. Nicola Frazier, all with the Department of Education, Corey Maynard and Vaughn Sturge with Fisheries, the local fisheries office here in Nevis, Minister Troy Liburd, Mr. John Hanley with Tourism, and of course the Honorable Mark Brantley and the Honorable Eric Evelyn for being here this morning and for their support the last 3 years. This program, as Terry indicated, is part of a larger water safety initiative of the Honorable Mark Brantley here, and we're proud to play an active role in turning this vision into reality here in the Federation. We look forward to playing a large role in increasing the overall level of water safety awareness, standardizing training and protocols, and ensuring the proper rescue equipment throughout the Federation. And we cannot wait to be back here in October. So I thank you, and I will turn it over to Premier Brantley.
All right, good morning, everyone. I just want to say how grateful we are for this organization from the US who have been here for a couple of years now. The initiative would have started when I was the Minister of Sport, and so I am very pleased with how this initiative has grown. Of course, it would have started with Swim to Win and in trying to encourage persons on the island of Nevis to learn to swim. And of course, when you learn to swim, there must be that safety aspect as well. I'm happy with the report that was just given, how many organizations would have come on board, and institutions as well as departments. Because when I hear of my own Department of Marine Resources coming on board, of course it's very important where safety is concerned. My Department of Marine Resources, we deal with the fishermen, And we cannot overemphasize the importance of safety when where fishermen are concerned. They go out on a daily basis. It is their livelihood. They are trying to feed us with protein, and they must be safe. When we talk about the ferries that traverse our waters on a daily basis, we recognize that there are hundreds of persons who travel between St. Kitts and Nevis daily. And we cannot overemphasize the importance of safety. As would have been said, it was an initiative of the Premier because, of course, we recognize that we had a disaster many years ago, and we would not want that to ever happen again here in Nevis or between St. Kitts and Nevis. So I'm delighted to see how well the program has grown. Tourism, we understand, is on board as well. We know that we have some lifeguards deployed by tourism on some of the beaches as well. And as I reflect, as the gentleman spoke and Terry spoke, I reflect because only recently we had an incident at Pinnis, and someone who was there on the spot was in high praise for one of our lifeguards from tourism. They said the way he responded, how professional he was, and I'm sure he probably was one who may have benefited from some training before. And so we cannot overemphasize the importance of this training, and I am happy that so many persons are on board. We want the training to continue. We will certainly welcome you back in October, and we just want our people here who use the waters between St. Kitts and Nevis to be safe and always have safety as a top priority. So, as the former Minister of Sports, the program continues to be highly endorsed, and I wish it every success going forward. And I want to thank the organization from the U.S. who continue to be of support to us, and of course Terry for always pushing so very much with this program. So of course now I would like to ask the Premier to say a few words.
Morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and to those here at the head table. It is for me a great pleasure to be here this morning. And it's a great pleasure because sometimes small ideas, once we get the right people, become important initiatives over time. Terry has been very generous because she has said that this was my idea. I suppose she knows I'm a politician. Politicians love to take credit for things. But the truth is that this could not have happened without Terry and her team. They were the ones who I think have been the driving force behind this. So in many ways, they have been driving the bus, and the government has been a passenger on that bus. We have supported. We have certainly lent all that we have in terms of access and assistance. But at the end of the day, we needed people who were committed to execute. And so, Terry, I want to thank you publicly for all that you've done and all that you continue to do to make this a reality for us. Now, some of you, as I look across the audience, are quite young. But others who are not as young, like myself, would recall that in 1970, Nevis had the biggest marine tragedy that we've had in the country, and that was the sinking of the MV Christina. And that killed many people. In fact, there are people here, I'm sure, who may have had relatives lost. Hardly any family in Nevis was untouched. And the sense that we got from that tragedy was that many people perished because they could not swim. Many people perished because we did not have proper regard for safety. We didn't have proper protocols in place as to how we respond to that type of situation. And so we lost over 200 people on that day. It has led to a peculiarity, and that peculiarity is that despite the fact that we are an island, and by definition surrounded by water, most of us can't swim. And I recall when I was a young boy, my mother used to say to me, do not go to the ocean. This Christina disaster was a national trauma for us. And so many of us grew up fearing and being told that we ought not to go to the sea. And so it wasn't surprising that as a consequence, a lot of our population shied away and therefore could not swim, and still to this day can't swim. And so years ago when I spoke to Terry, the idea really started by trying to see how we can teach people to swim. and how we can get more of our population involved in swimming. Swimming, we know, is good for exercise, but it's also a safety issue. And that was really where this started. It started as an effort to get more people accustomed to the idea of swimming, to remove the phobia and the fear that's associated with the ocean and with swimming. And it has now developed into something far greater. And so Jeff and his team are here because of that development. And we're now talking not just about teaching people how to swim, but about safety, about security underwater, about ensuring that those who go to the beaches, those who use the beaches, those who use the pools, those who traverse the waters between St. Kitts and Nevis. Minister Evelyn said hundreds of us are moving each day between these two islands, and that's absolutely true. In fact, when we look at the statistics of those who are using the water taxi facility, those who are using the main piers in Charlestown, we're talking about thousands of people are moving each year. And we know that if there is an accident on the ocean, that we want our people to be safe. We can't guarantee there won't be accidents. The only thing we can do is to prepare for them. And so in a very real way, the effort that we're seeing here that has become now a national effort, because what has started in Nevis has now spilled over, I think, into St. Kitts, and we now see a national movement. We even see, and I take some, credit is not the word, I take some comfort in the fact that we even see now our young people who are engaging in swimming as a competition, as a sport. You know, had you told me 10 years ago that this would be happening, I would say impossible. But the truth is that swimming now has become, for us, more of a pastime. And I feel in a very real way that were it not for the Christina disaster, all those years ago, over 50 years ago now, that our people might have been more comfortable with the ocean. But I think, as I said, we had this national trauma that continued to affect us for all of these years. So in a very real way, what we're seeing here is an effort to change the tide of our history, an effort to ensure that our people can swim, an effort to ensure that if there are accidents, which will happen, that we are in a position and have the necessary competencies and protocols to deal with those accidents. And that is really what we're trying to do. You know, sometimes initiatives such as these go unnoticed. Sometimes people take it for granted. Sometimes the people who are involved, the volunteers who make it happen, these gentlemen and this lady here on my left, who have given of themselves. As far as I know, nobody's paying them. This is not a job. This is dedicated service on their part. And the fact that they do it and do it quietly sometimes, they're not seeking the spotlight, that we don't give them enough credit and we don't notice them. Well, this morning I want to say thank you to them. I want to say that we appreciate very much the efforts that you've made. We appreciate very much the growth, moving from just 10 participants now to over 200 participants. And we are hopeful that this level of engagement and growth continues. Just this morning I posted something on social media which says excellence is contagious. And I really believe that if we continue to demonstrate excellence, that we will continue to convert persons. And so for those of you in the audience, some of you I know are public servants employed in the various ministries that are engaged. But I see other people who, as far as I know, are not employed in the public service. Maybe you have children, or you have family members, or you yourselves are involved in the program. Whatever the position, I want more of us to volunteer. I want more of us to get involved. And I want more of us to appreciate what it is that we are seeking to do here on the island of Nevis, which is really to create the best island that we can. And we have had the privilege of having partners like Terry, Jeff, and his team. We have the privilege of having dedicated public officials who want to see us do better. And so sometimes these activities may not attract the headlines, they may not be up in lights, but I think we're changing and impacting lives in a positive way. And that ultimately is what we're seeking to do, and that I think if we can achieve that, we would have been successful. So perhaps I've gone on a bit longer than necessary, but I really wanted to say thank you. Thank you to all, to the Honorable Eric Evelyn, because he has been steadfast in his support. I'm not so sure if he has learned how to swim yet, but certainly he has been steadfast in his support. And I just want to thank all of you. I'm hopeful that all of you in the audience know how to swim. No? Well, it means that we need to expand from 200 to 2,000. We need to access more people. But I'm very pleased about one aspect of this, is that it's really been provided to everyone. We haven't just said the children. We have really had adult classes. We have had everyone. And the uptake continues to increase. And so I want to thank sports. I want to thank education. I want to thank everybody who's been involved in this. I think that this is something good. I think it is something important. And I don't want you to underestimate or undervalue what is being offered here. What is being offered here could mean the difference between life and death. And so I thank you. I'm happy that Honorable Eric Evelyn spoke about the lifeguards and pinnies. That is an initiative, again, that we've introduced, again, about safety. Most beaches, public beaches around the world would have lifeguards on duty. This is something that Nevis has done. Not even in St. Kitts it's been done. We've done it over here as a pilot project. And again, they have had good reviews because they've been on hand to assist persons who have difficulties in the ocean. So that's what we're talking about, safety. And even people who can swim can run into difficulties. You can have something go wrong, a heart attack, a stroke, something while you're in the water. So being able to deal with it, being able to understand, to spot and react, I think is very important. And so I encourage you, and I'm hopeful that at some point they'll give me some lessons as well, but for now I'm just a cheerleader. So I really thank all of you for being here this morning. This is a very worthy event. I'm happy to see that we have so many in attendance. And again, I commend all. Terry, take a bow. I think you've given incredible service to the people of Nevis, and I'm truly grateful to you and to your team that you've been able to assemble, and the people of this caliber that you've been able to attract to the island to assist us in achieving our goals as we try to develop Nevis in a sustainable way. So thank you all, and I truly appreciate having been here this morning. Now, Eric and I have to go to cabinet, but we thought it important enough that we come here first. So thank you, and all of you who can't swim, learn how to swim. We have enough ability now. 9 sessions.
9 sessions.
9 sessions a year now, so you really don't have any excuse that you learn how to swim. And for the ladies, you know, it's not only just putting on the nice swimsuits and going to the beach or going and relaxing by the pool. It's also learning how to swim and also learning how to respond if persons are having a difficulty. So let's all hold hands and pray that we can be safe and that what we're doing here will ultimately result in saving lives. Thank you very much.
You can call me Bryce, Bond. I go by anything. I've been called either. Little background on me. I've been guarding for almost 10 years now. I've been teaching lifeguarding, CPR, first aid, AED, all this for almost half as long, so around 5 years now. Yeah, I've been, in my guarding experience, I've worked as a beach guard up in the United States, up in the state of Maryland. I did that for about 3 years, and I've been a pool guard off and on for 4 or 5 years. So I have plenty of experience both in the waterfront, so like the beaches you have around here, as well as pools and other type of water facilities. Today it's just going to be, we're not going to get in the water. We're just going to be doing CPR, first aid, AED, all of which is very important. I've done hundreds of rescues, I've saved hundreds of people in the water, but I've had 2, 3, 4 times as many things dealing with first aid. Thankfully, I've never had a CPR someone, but I've almost, but first aid is a very common issue you'll see anywhere and everywhere. And some of these skills I'll tell you about, and some of these concepts you can probably use almost in your everyday life, if not probably once or twice every week or 2. So before I start, any questions or anything? No? Okay. So I'm going to start off with a quick first aid kind of discussion. it have things I've gathered over the years, as well as the specific knowledge you need to know for this course. First thing I'll give you all a second to get your resources out. Is bleeding. Bleeding is a serious issue. There's different stages of it, different levels. There's two major types of bleeding. The lesser severe of it is a vein bleed or a venal bleed. These types of bleeding are the most common. They're like a slight oozing from the skin. Most cuts, most injuries are this type of bleeding. They're not serious. A Band-Aid, like a flushing of wounds, you pour water over it, you put a Band-Aid, put Neosporin, put something antibacterial over it. That's usually the most you need. If it's a severe oozing bleed, you put gauze on it. Gauze like a mesh fabric that helps clot blood. A little science for you: blood clots through the platelets in our blood and makes barriers so that we stop bleeding. That's vein bleeds. Not super serious, but can be. The more serious of which is an arterial bleed. We have major arteries in our body that pumps blood throughout to circulate the blood from our heart. We have 4 or 5 major sections of arteries. We have the femoral arteries, which are the inside of the thigh. They're the largest of our arteries. Little information for you: if your major femoral artery is hit, you are unconscious within like 18 seconds, and you are dead in 30. That's how much blood is flowing outside of your arteries. The other ones, you have brachial, artery reform, all of which are on the inside of your limb, so inside leg, inside your arm. Then you have our cardiovascular artery in our neck that gives blood flow to our brain. The main way you tell the difference between an artery bleed and a vein bleed is if it's an artery bleed, the blood is squirting inside the body. So there's a pulsing, so it goes with our heartbeat. There's a pulsing squirt outside the body. To stop this, you have to put pressure above the wound. So if I had an injury on my upper thigh, right, my lower part of my thigh down here, I put pressure up here on the inside to stop the bleeding. There is a tool we use. I don't have one with me. It's called a tourniquet. It's basically a strong fabric, and you use usually a metal rod or a strong wooden rod to twist down and tighten. The way you know you put enough pressure to stop the bleeding is the blood will stop squirting out. You might have some oozing bleeding, but the main thing is you want to stop the squirting bleeding because that's a lot of blood leaving the body. And as with any wound, especially a vein bleed, if you apply pressure to the wound directly, it helps clot faster and stop the blood flow from leaving the body. An important tidbit for closing wounds, especially with gauze, you never want to remove a gauze pad once you've applied it. This gauze pad helps produce, like, if you ever had a wound that scabs over, it produces this scab onto the wound. And it goes into the fabric of the gauze pad and helps reduce the, it helps prevent you from bleeding out and clots from leaving the fabric. That's the main tidbits with bleeding, how to stop them. The next major thing you see would be fractures, so bone fractures. The two main things you have to worry about: you have internal fractures and you have a compound fracture, which pokes out of the skin. A quick little tidbit for compound fractures: people always say, "Oh, just pull it back into place." With how muscles work, when a bone breaks, it doesn't just break like this; it breaks and goes up. So our muscles pull on our bones. So you never want to try to shove it in and let the hospitals deal with that. Your main point is to stop bleeding if it's a compound fracture, or use a splint, which usually involves a stick, metal rod, some sort of firm, rigid device to help lock in the bones and other help lock your bones in a straight position so you don't move it around. If your arm or leg is broken, you don't want to be moving it around, causing more injuries. They have soft splints, which is usually it's like a roll. You unroll it, and when you put it on, it becomes rigid. The most common of which is like 2 boards or 2 sticks. You put it on the leg, put it on the arm, mobilize certain parts, certain limb, or immobilize them to prevent them from moving, causing further damage. Most of these you have to get to medical attention, especially serious ones, like fractures and artery bleach, go to the hospital, some medical facility to help treat you because they're more trained in these serious medical injuries. Now, in saying that, so with, we'll go to this section. On the island, luckily you don't have any really dangerous creatures outside of insects, mainly. The biggest thing is allergens. There are a lot of allergens that cause issues. Usually the most common of which you see is bee stings, collagen stings, anaphylaxis. The swelling of our throat will close and you can't breathe. This swelling is probably caused by allergens, which usually is bees. Usually you have like food allergies like peanuts. Peanuts is a common one. Other food allergies can cause it. There's a few things you can do for these major allergic reactions. You use EpiPen, epinephrine. This helps reduce swelling due to allergic reactions. They're not super common. You see it a lot in the U.S., but some people don't carry it if they have serious conditions. An important thing you can do, it's good to know, if you do not have an EpiPen and someone has a serious allergic reaction, any antihistamine, so it's usually the most common, which is like a Benadryl. If you crush a Benadryl pill up into that and put it into someone's mouth to try to reduce the swelling, things like that, that can work. It's not as good, but it's a practical at-home solution you can have if you're far away from like an EpiPen or medical services to help prevent the closing of the throat. We'll get into CPR and breathing in a little bit. I just want to get through the CPR first aid section first. We'll get into the breathing, pulse, and all that later on. But the closing the airway and things like that goes hand in hand with CPR and AED training. Now, we kind of mentioned bees. There's not too many dangerous animals. We don't have venomous snakes that we have in the U.S. on the island. But a lot of animals can be very dangerous. Any animal bite is important to get checked out, especially those of similar beings or genetic material. So when I say that, the closer an animal is related to us, the more likely you are to get a transferable disease. The most common ones would be monkeys and primates. On here there are monkeys on the island. They have more of a tendency to transfer diseases due to like biting and contact like that. The other more common ones like feral dogs, feral cats, they can also transfer a lot of diseases. I don't know how common rabies is on the island, but the U.S. is a large concern from animal bites. But regardless, any animal bite should be treated as a possible danger due to infection, other diseases, as well as any like major issues. Like bleeding can occur, infection is probably the biggest, but there are other communicable diseases. And like I said, the most common one in the U.S. is rabies. I'm not super well versed on the poisonous plants of the facility of this island. I'm sure there are some. My good motto is to avoid most. If you don't know what a plant is, try to avoid it. There are different ways these are transferred. Usually it's like either needles or poisonous oil. If it's the needle, you can try to remove the small needles. If not, it's the oil, don't rub them around. A more common issue you probably see on the island: hypothermia and hyperthermia. I'm a soon-to-be teacher. Little kind of minor English lesson to help you know the difference. Hypothermia is when someone is cold. So hypo is the lack of thermia is temperature, the lack of temperature heat. Hyper is in excess. That's usually the difference. For hypothermia, the most serious progression of the issue gets a frostbite. So it's the biggest issue with hypo and hyperthermia is you don't want these extreme shocking temperatures. So if somebody's extremely hot, don't shove them into like the freezer. If somebody's extremely cold, don't shove them into like a really hot environment. You want to gradually get their body into transition so their body the body is not used to this sudden shock of either large amount of water or cold temperature to the body. Speaking of which, you'll probably see a lot of hyperthermia, where the worst progression is heat stroke. So when you get super hot, you've been outside for a long period of time, you sweat a lot. This is the most common issue you see here. Heat stroke is the worst progression of hyperthermia. The body has sweat, all of its water can sweat. There's the key signs is that you stop sweating. Say if you're outside in the heat, even outside this 90-degree heat and humidity all day, you stop sweating, you start feeling cold in the sun, your body has then sweat everything out. It is reduced. Like it's given, there's no water in your body to give that will not damage the organs. At that point, it's extremely dangerous. I've had borderline heat stroke once. It's awful. The best things you can do with that, get them into a cooler environment. Again, don't put them in like a freezer. A cooler environment, give them some liquids, usually not ice cold, so like cooler liquids. The best liquid to give is an electrolyte drink, so like a power drink, like Gatorade, Powerade, something of the such. Get in a cool environment, get them out of the sun. The sun's a very important one. Even in the shade, from the sunshine to shade is a very big temperature drop. So just get people to a cool environment. If you have an AC room like this, that's even better. Yeah, cool drink. Don't let them chug it, because if they chug it, again, extreme change. No water in the body to a lot of intake water, the body will start throwing up. Yes, so get into a cool environment. Electrolyte drink, because again, electrolytes are replenished. You sweat a lot, so you lost a lot of salt. A lot of these things you need, very important to the body. It helps you recover faster and prevent issues. Any question? I covered a lot really quickly. Any questions about what I've said? Yes. Yes, that's another important thing. You can also, especially for liquid, you can help try to put it on the body. You basically, it's like mocking, like mimicking sweating. It's important. It helps cool you down. That's also another beneficial strategy. That's a very good point. That aids the idea of getting them out of this heat and cooling them down. Yes. Yes.
With the boss thing, there should be emphasis on if the leak continues, do not remove the boss, but layer the boss and continue to add pressure on it.
Yes, you never want to remove gauze. If you keep sweating, not sweating, sorry. If you keep bleeding through gauze, keep adding more, because you don't want to remove that scab and that clotting you've had onto the gauze pad. Yes. Some yes.
Anaphylaxis. You mentioned that you could pressure-antihistamine and potentially administer it. I don't think there are regulations that would stop us doing that here. However, in other parts of the world, we would not be able to give someone their own EpiPen. We have to help assist them to do it.
Yes.
And they're not allowed to administer any medications that are not prescribed for them. So that might, I'm not sure where we stand locally, but if we were to practice this beyond here, we could get in some trouble for that.
Yes, so that is an important point. Certain medications you can administer. A big one of which, I'm going to get to the big three medical issues, would be like asthma is another one. To get around these regulations, I don't say around. If you give them a medication and say, you should probably take this, but it's up to you to take it, if they take it on their own free will, that you're not liable for imposition because they took the medication. So if you say, this is like antihistamine, this is Benadryl, it can help reduce inflammation, or this is an aspirin, can help thin your blood and reduce the strain in your heart. If they take it on their own will, that is their decision, not yours. With EpiPen usually is injected into the thigh or some large, usually it's the thigh, but it's a large muscle. You can help administer an EpiPen, especially if they have their own, and if they aren't able to do it themselves. If you get asked, they give consent, you can assist them. There's a lot of regulations, especially in the U.S. and other parts of the world, where you can't administer these things, but there are a lot of ways to help in the process of administering. It helps reduce liability both for guard as well as help save the people who need these resources. But yes, that is a key point, and most of the serious ones are aspirin, antihistamines, and EpiPen. But thank you for mentioning that. Anything else for questions so far before we get into the big three? Disorders? Okay. No one else? Okay. Important thing to mention, I should mention with the bleeding, human blood is very dangerous. And when I say this, I don't mean like it's going to be like causing major injuries, but people have a lot of diseases that are very transferable through blood. A lot of the most dangerous ones would be like HIV, AIDS, hepatitis. There's a lot of strains of hepatitis. Certain STIs, other diseases are spread through blood. And there's other diseases that are spread through like fecal matter, urine, other bodily fluids. Important thing to note is that you should not touch any human waste directly with your skin. So gloves, any of these any barrier you should use to clean up bodily waste, or human blood. And to note with that, certain strains of hepatitis, even AIDS, can last a long time in dried blood outside of the body. I believe there's a strain of hepatitis that can be 28 days outside of the body in perfect conditions in dry blood. It can just be sitting on the sidewalk. So always treat any human waste as serious and dangerous. That's why we wear gloves. You have biohazard kits to remove these dangerous materials. Because you don't want HIV, AIDS, hepatitis. You don't want these things that can be lifelong and life-threatening. So make sure you're always cautious with these, with human waste, or human fluids, I guess. Now the big three major conditions, or sudden medical emergencies you can see: strokes, heart attacks, and seizures. We'll start with seizures. Seizures can have environmental factors, as well as just be caused by medical conditions. Like prior medical conditions in the past, someone might have sudden onset of seizures that aren't super serious. They can become serious, especially in the environment. So if someone's swimming and has a seizure, that's an issue. Not that a seizure isn't an issue anyway. For seizures, there's not a whole lot you can do per se to help fix a seizure. They need to get more medical attention. The main thing you should do is make sure they get to a position where they're not going to damage themselves. If someone's standing like I'm standing right now and has a seizure and falls, they fall, they can damage their head, they can cause injuries to themselves. If someone's on the ground and has a seizure, especially if they're like on a tile floor, on a concrete floor, they can slam their head into the ground and have other issues like that. With these, the best thing you can do, don't try to pin them down, don't like hug and embrace them. You don't want to have them hurt themselves. You want to let the body kind of go through the process of the seizure, but you want to make sure you give protection. Put like a towel under their head. You put towels, put something under their wrists or their ankles, so they're not slamming their feet, slamming their hands, slamming their head to the ground. You put them into a recovery position. So turn them onto their side. Don't force anything, but turn them onto their side. So if they start foaming at the mouth or puking or doing something, they're not gagged, they're not choking on their own vomit. So turn them onto their side into a recovery position. I'll demonstrate that when we get to when the CPR, when I'm on the ground more. Put them in the recovery position so that they can clear out their throat if they start vomiting, and so that they're not injuring themselves. Outside of that, I don't think you have a 911 per se. I don't know the full extent. In the U.S., we call 911, get emergency medical services present, and get them to the hospital. Sometimes in the U.S., people will deny an ambulance because sometimes these seizures are just medically induced. If people have seizures regularly, off and on, and they're not super serious, life-threatening, that is their choice, especially in the U.S. Again, I don't know how it goes here, but if it's not medically induced, they should probably go to the hospital or go to some medical facility to get checked out. For a stroke, there is an acronym to help you remember this. We call FAST. It's face, arms, speech, and time. With the face, the key part to look for the face, when someone has a stroke, usually half their face will start drooping or will look abnormal. With the arms, you tell someone to raise their arms, if they're having a stroke, raise their arms. Usually what's going to happen, their arms are going to be like this. They're going to be down a little bit, one will be down. It'll be a clear sign that there's a lack of motion on one side of the body. For for speech, what you do is you tell them to say like a sentence, like, the weather is nice today. Tell them to say it like that. You look at their face, you'll see their face, half their face wouldn't be moving. They'll have a slurred speech. There'll be clear signs that something is wrong. The next step of which is important is time. You want to know how long the stroke has been going on, both for not only their safety, but it lets the advanced trained medical personnel know how long this is going on, when it started, and how long they need to, how long they have to administer certain drugs. Again, this is a lot trained for the U.S. I don't know what the exact level of medical facilities is here, but it's still important to note for them. With all these major medical issues, there isn't a whole lot you can do besides accommodate their symptoms and put them in a safe position. For a stroke, sometimes to keep them safe, you can have them sit down, do things like that to help prevent them from either like falling, because sometimes they have reduced movement in their legs and limbs. Get them in a comfortable position, so don't put them in the sun. Keep the body in a safe and kind of comfortable environment. AC can be good, if not, just the shade does a lot for people. But again, stroke is one of the ones that they probably should go to the hospital regardless of if they want to or not, because that is not something they just easily can recover from. Heart attack, there's a few signs for heart attack. The most common one is the chest pain, the kind of shooting pain down the left arm. Usually there's a discomfort in general, an odd feeling. Some have said they've been nauseous, but most of which it's just an odd feeling or a pain, like a sharp chest pain. There's a weird kind of additional segment to this. A lot of men, when they have a heart attack, they just kind of deny, like, oh, I'm fine. I've dealt with a few heart attacks in the past. They've all been men, the three of them. They've all been like, oh, no, I'm fine. And then they've all had double heart bypass surgeries. It's a weird thing. So don't just assume that if they say no, that they don't have it, because they still might. Just be attentive to their condition. The best thing you can do for this is, again, put them in a cool environment. For heart attacks, aspirin is useful. We mentioned earlier that you can't directly give them per regulation for certain areas, but you can also easily give them aspirin, tell them this can do this to your body, go within the blood, it can help you if you want to take it. If they take it, that's their choice. Again, with heart attack, with any of these, put them in a comfortable environment, don't have them sitting in the hot sun. It puts more stress in the body. You want to try to reduce the stress and keep them comfortable. So if they need to go to the hospital, it can help them. I don't know how well equipped the island is with oxygen tanks. Oxygen tanks for heart attacks is very helpful. It helps reduce the stress on the lungs and the heart. So that is very beneficial as well if you have access to that and have someone who can administer it. But we are not directly training you on administering oxygen masks directly. There's a lot of regulations and safety with those that need to be addressed. That's just so you know. An important thing, especially in the U.S. for liability, is consent. Anytime you do a medical procedure with people in the U.S., you have to get consent. You have to ask them, can I help you? Can I do this? If they say no, you leave them alone. If they want the help, they'll be like, okay, I want help. The only caveat is if someone goes unconscious, even if they've said no in the past, we assume they want help. Because the assumption is that you go unconscious, you probably want to be helped to at least a stable condition. We have these things called DNRs, do not resuscitate in the U.S. Okay, I don't know how well accepted they're down here. My recommendation is that you just ignore these. Let the advanced medical personnel deal with these. We don't want you to be liable for following a DNR that may not have been into effect. Let the advanced medical personnel deal with those. You just do your role and your job to help people and ask for forgiveness later. You will not be in trouble for not following a DNR. You'll be in trouble for not helping people. This also goes to in the U.S. there's kind of a duty to act in a Good Samaritan law. Again, I've said repeatedly, I don't know everything down here. I know all the laws in the U.S. and my states. But the idea is that you need to help people. If you're in a facility where you're trained to do a job like CPR, first aid, and you're paid to be there, Or if like your shift ends, you get off at 5 and something happens at 4:59, you're there like, okay, my job's done, someone else can handle it. You have to help people. You want to act and help people until someone else gets trained there further. Someone who's more trained gets there. However, we also have this thing called Good Samaritan law, where if you're walking on the street, you're not in job position, you're like going to the store, you're walking there, and someone passes out right next to you. If you want to help them, you can help them, and you won't get in trouble because you are doing a good Samaritan. You're being a good Samaritan by trying to help. The only special issue with Good Samaritan is that if you were trying to like do an open arm surgery on a sidewalk, you're not really trained to do that, and you're not protected with that. And that's a U.S. thing. I don't know if it's here. I'm sorry if it's not or if it is. Yes. Any questions again? Yes.
Symptoms in women for heart attacks, there might be some additional words that are slightly different. So women tend to have back pain, very severe back pain, usually the upper back, that might come on suddenly, that could also be an indicator that they might be having a heart attack.
Yes.
And it's important that they recognize that because where men tend to have and it's noticeable as a heart attack, women also ignore the heart attack because they think or they're told it's just back pain or it's not that
Yeah.
severe, and so they get smaller, more continuous ones
Yeah.
that lead to more damage to the heart.
Yeah.
And will you guys be covering diabetes today?
So diabetes is, in the U.S., a lot of it is considered like an EMS level. It's important to know, usually the main thing would be that there's different types of diabetes. Some people may think, oh, they need sugar, they need insulin, they need these things. If you aren't fully sure about what type of diabetes they have and what they need, don't try to administer something. Because if they need sugar, you
Pretty much if there's no pulse, they're probably not going to be breathing. Going to be honest. If you don't feel a pulse when they're breathing, chances are they have a pulse. Or no, if they're breathing, but you say, "Oh, I don't feel a pulse," I don't know how you can be breathing but not have a pulse, right? So just use common sense in that regard. All right. So again, just to show you guys, I'm leaning over them. Elbows locked out, and you're just pushing down. Again, don't go at an angle. Leaning over top of them and pushing down. All right. Any questions, juniors? Any questions? Everybody else? Yeah. So, that's a good question. So, the ratio for adult is for everybody is actually 30 compressions to 2 breaths. That's just the ratio science has said.
In terms of the force, is still there.
Force.
Okay, yeah.
Now, I'll say this is the difference. You're going from an adult to a child. Almost identical. The only difference is with a child. We'll talk about infant totally different later on. Child, don't compress all the way down. Adult, you can press a little further. But child, you don't want to press as far as you would for an adult as for someone younger, right? And then, as well as if it's a smaller child, for an adult, you can put all your air pretty much into them because their lungs are about similar size to yours, right? If you're a child, you don't want to use all your breath in your lung because your lungs are bigger than their lungs. So you would use a smaller portion of your lung, just enough. Again, when you breathe, it's just enough to see the chest rise. Don't try to go crazy and putting all your air into where victim. Let the chest rise, fall. Another breath, let it rise, fall. We're not going crazy and just trying to fill the lungs up. All right? Does that make sense? Any questions? Yeah. Don't just like leaning on them. Just start the compressions right away there. And again, I do.
Yeah. Question. You do 30 compressions, 2 breaths. Within 1 minute, how much are you supposed to deliver to that?
So it's about 100, 120 beats per minute. I think you guys heard the song, like there's songs that they say that you stay to the beat of like staying alive. That song, if you ever listen to that song, the beat is meant to, well, it's a song, yes, but the beat is meant to keep you on pace for the appropriate, ratio. Yeah, 100 to 120 beats max. All right. Again, I won't count out exactly what you will, but if I'm seeing you go crazy like this, if you're just going like this, I know you're going way too quick. The goal is to make sure the chest is fully recoiling between each compression. So if you're just doing this, and you're staying down here, I'm just doing this, you're not doing any benefit to the person. That chest needs to fully rise between each compression because you're trying to pump the blood, circulate the blood in that person's body. All right? Good. Any other questions? All right, let's go ahead and join in and practice. Let's, again, just one more time, because, again, it's so important, the primary assessment to practice. Keep that second nature. Let's do the primary assessment. We'll go right into the CPR. I want to see 2 cycles of CPR before you're done. It'll be 30, 2 breaths, 30, 2 breaths.